and welcome to this hybrid meeting of Planning Committee on Tuesday, the 9th of December 2025. I am Councillor Jeff Jones and I will be chairing today's meeting. Just to make you all aware, this meeting will be recorded. Can I welcome any members of the public and press to today's meeting? Can I kindly ask you to observe the meeting only and not speak or participate unless you have registered to do so? Please ensure that your phones are switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. I wish to remind members signing in remotely of their legal obligation to have their cameras switched on during the meeting, please, in order to be seen and heard by participating in council business. If you wish to speak or ask a question, please raise your electronic hand on Teams or physical hand if in person. Should you wish to ask any questions of any of the attendees here today, please ensure these come through me as the chair. I will now move on to agenda item 1, Chair's announcements. We are not due to have a fire drill, but should the fire alarm sound during the meeting, please make your way to the nearest exit. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest?
We don't see any declarations, Chair.
Thank you, Matthew. Agenda item 3. The minutes from the meeting held on the 18th of November 2025 are attached on pages 5 to 8 of the agenda pack for approval. Members, do you have any comments to make on the accuracy of these minutes? Please can I have a proposer and seconder to approve the minutes?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you.
I'll second. Diolch.
Thank you. Any abstentions? If you do not raise your hand to the contrary, I will assume you are in favour of approving the minutes.
I concur those minutes being approved as true and accurate, Chair.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Matthew. Agenda item 4 is a request for site visits. Are there any members who wish to suggest a site visit on the application presented today or for any other matter? No. Please let me know if you wish to call for a site visit at any point in the meeting. Now we move to matters for decision. Application number 2022-0563. Outline planning application for the development of up to 252 dwellings at land north of Elba Crescent, Crumlin Burrows, Neath, Talbot. The report is set out on pages 9 to 50 of your agenda pack, and this application is recommended for approval. I would now like to ask the planning officer to take us through the report. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. This is planning application P 2022-0563 for outline planning application for the development of up to 152 dwellings, including affordable housing, associated infrastructure, public open space and landscaping on land north of Elba Crescent, Crumlin Burrows. Noting this application is an outline application with all matters reserved. But this is the application site as I've read. You will see Elba Crescent to the south of the plan with the industrial development to the north. This gives you an indication of how the scheme has evolved in the past. So this relates to a previous application that included the industrial units at the rear, some of which have already been erected under separate consent. But this application that's here before you just relates to residential development as outlined on that red line previously. But this is how the application site sits within the wider context. You'll see Bay Studios development off to the east, to the north and to the west, commercial development. To the north there, you will see MREC, Council's Recycling Centre, and beyond that, you've got the railway line, Sand Canal, and the SAC and Ramsar of Crumlin Bog. To the south of the site lies Elba Crescent, Beyond that is Fabian Way, the main thoroughfare into Swansea City Centre, and beyond that, the Swansea University Bay campus. Again, we've got some drone footage taken by a colleague within the department. So you can see Elba Crescent running upwards there in the centre of the screen, with the Bay campus to the right, and the site there to the left. And this is the view towards Neath the Talbot. This image shows the industrial development at the rear, with the Bay Studios to the top left-hand corner, and again the Bay campus in the distance with Fabian Way, and you can see the residential development, linear residential development of Alba Crescent there as well. We put this image to give you an indication of the existing street pattern and form of development there within Alba Crescent. Predominantly traditional two-storey properties, semi-detached. But as mentioned, the application is an outline with all matters reserved. This is an illustrative master plan. This shows the access points, 2 access points located off Alba Crescent, with a green landscape buffer that separates residential development from the commercial development beyond, both to act as a visual buffer, but also as a buffer for protecting amenity and to protect the industrial uses as well from being affected by residential development. You will note there are also conditions within the planning recommended as part of the planning application within there regarding the landscape buffer and acoustic screening. You see the centre location. We've got the area of green open space with a mix of development from 1 to 4 bedroom units, up to a maximum number of units. All matters are reserved. So all details including the layout and design of the properties will be considered at a later date should the outline application be approved as part of the resident reserved matters applications. It's also worth noting there at the bottom right-hand corner of the site is an indication of a possible retail unit for local needs. So small local needs convenience store as well to serve the wider development. The application is recommended for approval. The recommendation is set out on page 35 with the conditions through to pages 49. You will note that the application would also be subject to a Section 106 legal agreement to secure the provision of public open space and play facilities within the ward, and the costs sorted per dwelling are set out on the bottom of page 35. In addition, this legal agreement will include the requirement for 25% affordable housing in accordance with policy AH1 and our supplementary planning guidance, and a contribution per dwelling of any unit of 2 or more beds for the provision of off-site educational infrastructure and accordance with SPG. So in accordance with those heads of terms and the conditions as set out within the report, we're recommending approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Do the local ward members, councillors Ken Phillips and Kerry Clark, have anything to say? Oh,
Councillor Kerry Clark has that.
okay, Councillor Clark, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a couple of questions for Chris here, to do with the Section 106 education money. At the moment, the schools within the catchment, Tillerin and Crumlin Primary, are reaching or are already at capacity. If residents were to send their children to schools in Swansea, because that might be closer to them and there might be places where they're available, would there be a cost to the council for transport then? If they were not choosing to do it, but if they were doing it because our catchment schools were full?
Oh, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the details for transport to school, obviously there's a 2-mile distance for primary school and a 3-mile distance for secondary school. So the contribution for education would go towards provision of infrastructure, ideally for additional classrooms or towards new school provision. What I've been advised by school transport is obviously parents can obviously opt to send their children to whichever school they choose to, whether that's in Neath, Talbot or Swansea. But in terms of school transport, it has to be to the closest school to them. So in this catchment, my understanding is that Crumlin would be the nearest primary school within Neath, Talbot, and Dora Valen would be the nearest secondary school to Neath, Talbot. Dora Valen currently does serve this area with a bus that takes children to and from Dora Valen. In terms of if parents wish to opt out from those, go to a different school that was potentially closer, then they still would have to comply with those distance guidelines, but there would be some kind of potential impact in terms of costs associated with that. What they're advised is that sometimes that's money towards petrol for the parents themselves to transport children to school, not necessarily taxi provision or bus provision. But obviously you can discuss that in more detail with the relevant section, but those are the highlights that we've had provided to us.
Thank you, Chris.
With Welsh medium education, the nearest one is Britain Ferry, and the nearest secondary is in Baglan. So that would require transport, wouldn't it?
I would imagine so, yes. But
Okay.
in terms of obviously the funding is for every unit that's over one bed, and those calculations are set out in the supplementary planning guidance. So there will be, once the reserve matters application came in and we knew the mix of development on site, that would then work out the calculation of the total amount. And obviously that money would ideally be spent on providing additional classrooms and facilities within the schools, within the relevant catchment, to provide additional places.
Okay, thank you. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was, obviously this is outline planning. Residents have made representations about the sort of housing that will be across the road from them. Is it envisaged that it will reflect the same sort of architecture so that it's in keeping?
Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yes, we would, obviously, as you note from the conditions, I think there's these conditions in there about phasing. As part of the development, obviously, they've given an indication of the parameters of development, which just provide the maximum, minimum heights, lengths, and widths of all buildings within the proposed development. As you note from what they've submitted, it's a mix of proposals, dependent obviously on when that comes forward. I understand the local market housing needs assessment has just been put online for 2025, so that data has just gone on the website, I believe. Kerry's not in, I think, so I think I'm right. But obviously, depending on when they come forward with that application, there will be discussions with our housing strategy team on what mix in terms of affordable housing. But in terms of actual design, I think as planning officers, we probably want to see some kind of architecture and a reflection of the existing vernacular along that street scene, so that the houses on the opposite side from those are shown in there, or some kind of relationship with it. And whilst they could do different phases, different styles within the development, it's likely that we would be looking at sort of two-story, more traditional type properties to the frontage to kind of make sure that it all hangs together quite well.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. The only other thing I'd like to say is I'm really pleased that, you know, over the years, this is a planning application that's been hanging around for ages, that the planning officers have been, you know, talking about, you know, play areas and shops and, you know, amenities for the people that already live there as well. I think I'd just like to thank Claire and Chris for including these things, because I think they're very important in especially in village areas where they don't necessarily have access to things in towns. So I just wanted that noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Councillor Phillips?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, I'd like to echo Helen's comments on and thank the officers for the engagement we've had on this one over a significant time, talking through you know what's come in, and to note that this is an outline application. there may well be further comments down the line when the detailed application comes in around design and so on. But again, just thank you to the officers for keeping us updated on this. Thank you, Chair.
Arthur. Thank you, Ken. I will now take questions from the members of the committee. Members, do you have any questions to ask the officers? Yeah, Councillor Sarah Thomas.
Thank you. So I've got two questions that I'm doing one at a time because, as you know, I've got ADHD. So the first one, I noticed there was a lot of concerns about HMOs. Obviously, if this were to go ahead and be built, any HMOs would need to go through a change of use planning application, wouldn't they?
Chris?
Yes, Councillor Thomas, if you note, there's a condition on the permission that restricts it to standard residential development only. Any applications for HMOs or generic large HMOs would require a separate permission, and that is not part of this application. That's correct.
Okay, and I am conscious it's outline planning, so it's somewhat limited at the moment, but are they going to build a park in the area? And I've got one more question after this.
Yes, as you know from that plan, it provides an area of open space and play within the centre, but there's obviously also the head terms that refer to off-site provision. So it may well be sort of informal open space, but there is a play area located in the area. So that will be discussed as part of that reserve matters application with our colleagues in the play section and the local members on what the need is for that area.
Okay, final question. So obviously parking has been a huge bone of contention in the area. Is there going to be, and again it's outline planning, is there going to be off-road parking for all of these houses?
Yes, the parking will be in accordance with the council standards, which are per bedroom up to a maximum of 3. In addition, obviously, as you know, there's been indiscriminate parking issues in the past. I think it's noted in the report and some of the comments received regarding large number of tickets being issued for students and others using the area. This area along the frontage of El Crescent is currently a dead frontage with a fence and conifer trees. So it allows for lots of people to park in that area indiscriminately. This will obviously create 2 access points with its own TROs, which will have control on those junctions, but also an element of properties that will also front that with driveways. So in terms of, so that would obviously result in some kind of improvement along that frontage and activity, but also it will provide its own off-street car parking for properties in line with the current guidelines.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillor Tim Bowen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just a bit miffed now why this have actually come to planning, because I can understand what the ward members have asked for it to come, but they haven't raised anything at the moment about flooding, parking, students parking there. I can understand the school which Helen have raised, but apart from that, they haven't actually put over anything to us about the concern they have for flooding and so forth. Can I ask them if they've got anything to add to that?
Chris.
Councillor, I think that both councillors kind of alluded to it previously without taking, speaking for them. But I think that during the process, even when taking this application to committee, I think that it's an allocation within the site. But obviously, as you know, the previous applications were less a number. This is for a larger number of units. I think in terms of the issues that have been raised regarding HMOs, flooding and things, I think the councillors have alluded to that we've been working with them, discussing changes to the scheme since it originally came back in 2022. And I think we've kind of tried to hit off all of those issues to try and address them as much as we can, either through changes to the application or by clearly setting out the conditions. So I think we've kind of tried to address those as part of the report, and even after the report was issued, we've had separate discussions with the local members to talk through some of these issues to make sure they were happy with the way that it was put forward. I don't know if Councillor Kerry Clark will come in and...
Yeah, can I come back first, Chair, before Helen comes back in? So yes, I'd like to ask a question, and what is actually being done about the parking and the traffic? Because it seems like these residents down there are taking a lot of abuse for these students parking on their property, parking in residents' parking bays and so forth. As the university being approached by anybody to say, look, you've got to start putting this in their tuition fees, that if they got cars, there will be a certain amount put in for their parking in the university, so we're keeping them off the road. And, you know, it seems that Elba Crescent is having a nightmare down there, and I do sympathise for the two ward members, because it seems that they, you know, the highest problem for being people being fined for parking there, and it seems to be a lot to do with the students, and I do sympathise with them, and I think this is something that needs to be looked at.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Ellen?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. There are a lot of problems with students parking down Crumlin Burrows. In a way, I feel that parts of this planning application would resolve some of the issues we're having, because one of the problems we have at the moment is that residents can't park in parking bays because students are parking on the grass verge behind the parking bays, meaning that once someone's parked in the parking bay, they've blocked the students in, which then cause a lot of animosity between the students and the residents. Obviously, if that grass verge is removed, then the parking, and you know, that grass verge is then somebody's drive or somebody's back garden, then it won't be an issue for students parking there and blocking residents, and residents feeling they can't use the parking spaces there. In terms of the flooding, there's obviously, you'll notice there's a lot of work going on in on Fabian Way at the moment, which I believe, and I hope, will alleviate the flooding problems that we've had in the area in the past, with people's back gardens and garages becoming flooded every time we have weather like we have today. That is intended to, you know, relieve some of that. So when this planning application initially came forward, we were still at the stage where everybody's back gardens were flooding all the time. So that's what I was concerned of. I was thinking, if you add another set of houses in, there's even less space for the water to go. So I'm hoping Chris can confirm. Will it be more Justin, won't it, really? I think probably looking at drainage. He could just explain, am I correct there? Because
Okay. Thank you, Ellen. Chris would like to respond to you. Thank you.
Yeah, so as Councillor alluded to, there's ongoing drainage improvements to Fabian Way to improve the drainage to that, which I believe was the issue that was causing, was adding to the issues in terms of flooding to the rear gardens of those properties on Elm Crescent. But in terms of this application, obviously this application will require a start consent, which Justin team will be dealing with. You will note the comments that we've had in there with various consultations and additional information coming back forward then out of blue to address the flood risk, which have been addressed. But again, there are conditions in relation to drainage, protection of Welsh Waters infrastructure there, and also the SARB's permission. But I don't know if Justin can add any more in terms of the technical detail. Justin?
Yeah, thank you, Chris, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Clark, as well, for the comments, and Councillor Tim Bowen. Yeah, with regards to the SARB, where we'll be looking for a minimum of a 30% betterment in terms of what is currently there at the moment. It is a brownfield site, so we will look to treat the surface water and the groundwater at source through the SUDs, which will use landscaped areas in order to overcome that. This is a relatively new initiative. It's a statutory requirement, as most members would know, which has come into fruition in 2019, and we are the only country in the UK that has implemented under Schedule 3 of the Flood and Water Management Act. So we insist upon a sustainable drainage system being implemented within new developments. So that will be covered under that remit. And in relation, I'm happy to go into a lot more detail, because I find talking about SARBs very interesting. I'm quite sad in that respect. I do apologize, but it is my remit after all, which is a good thing. But and again, just touching upon the parking, which also comes under my remit, Councillor Bowen, there is compliance, as Chris touched upon in his opening presentation, compliance with our parking standards, SPG 2016, whereby they have to provide off-street parking for a maximum of 3 spaces. And we've also looked at the indicative layout and the potential. As I said, it's up to 150 dwellings, and we've catered for that within the site as well. So as far as we are concerned, and even the traffic trips coming from the site have been scrutinised, not only by ourselves, but also with Swansea City Council. And they've looked at the traffic impact on the wider road. So it's all been done robustly and rigorously in terms of the detailed design. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Justin.
I was only going to mention as well, is obviously that the layout with the two access points as well would potentially facilitate kind of a bus loop in there as well. So should there be services, you'll be able to service by the buses. And just to reiterate again, is obviously it's not just when members call applications to committee. Whilst we refer to it in the report, sometimes there are reasons why we would take an application to committee. And you will note in the report that this is an allocation that due to the previous applications was a windfall site for 50 units. So obviously you will note that this is for significantly more houses than what's set out in the LDP. So that again would be, would be a justification for this to be looked at by committee today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Are you happy with that, Tim? Or?
Yeah, can I just back in one question and then I'll disappear then I'll leave everybody else ask. So Helen mentioned that they got a grass verge there and students are parking on there and people can't park in their bays. So are we, Justin, are we looking to take this grass verge away or put some form of bollards there? Because, there is objections of residents and I know that the 2 ward members are happy for this application to go through with certain criteria put in. So if someone could just answer that, because I think we need to look after the residents as well as the new estate. I can understand they got off-road parking. Thank you.
Justin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As pointed out, because the development will be utilising that dead frontage on the opposite side of the road, there will be 2 access points which will have TROs or traffic orders in place outside to prevent access, improve to make sure there's visibility, but also areas where there will be driveways. So that development then becomes very similar to what's on the opposite side of the road. So what you'll have then is parking within the curtilage of each property, plus the access point. So that problem that they currently have would predominantly disappear. So, but as part of the scheme, they obviously have to design up the junctions, look at whether TROs are in place, and go through road safety audits and things like that to make sure that it's all designed. So that will all be designed up as part of that reserve matters application. Should this outline application be approved today? But it should resolve some of the issue. It's not going to resolve all of the issue with indiscriminate parking. The other issue to touch upon is I haven't been involved, particularly in the university in recent years, because obviously we had a flurry of development there, but things have died down now in terms of further development on the university side. But I know that the university have previously engaged with the local members and the residents there to try and attempt to resolve issues with indiscriminate parking. And I know that they do send out information as part of those welcome packs and things about, do's and don'ts. And I believe that in the past they have, had issues with students who weren't abiding into their code of conduct. So they have a similar code of conduct. I'm not sure if those liaison groups with the university continue with the local members, but there is that ability for them to contact them. But we haven't had any recent applications down there the last few years. So I'm sort of a bit of a touch on that, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Happy Tim, thank you. Councillor Carl Jordan.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if you want to bring in Councillor Kelly Clark first. She raised her hand during the topic there.
I will wait, Carl, because the local ward members can speak after the members of the committee.
Okay, perhaps Chris or Justin can answer this. I do apologise. You may have mentioned this earlier. Chris, can I ask, or Justin, please, access into into Crumlin Road, is it, or into Jersey Marine? Is it coming in off the traffic lights that are set at Corner Park Garage there? Because I know we got a bus access from Jersey Marine slip off at Crumlin Burrows. So the main access in, is it going to be off the lights just after Corner Park, please?
Yes, there's the mover traffic light system that's located off Corner Park, yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Carl. Would the local ward members like to sum up before I move to the recommendation? Councillor Clark?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I wanted to address what Tim was asking about the university. The university do make the students aware, or they tell us that they make the students aware at the beginning of term that they're not supposed to bring their vehicles to university with them. Many of them ignore that advice and go and park there anyway. The university have disbanded the liaison, the community liaison officer now, so we don't have that mechanism that we used to have to complain about the parking there. We've looked at various measures in Crumlin boroughs to address the parking issues, such as putting a no entry except for access order in there, which unfortunately the police aren't enforcing. But we've tried everything to keep the students out of that area. Basically, the university, they basically say we tell the students they're not to bring their vehicles, and if they do, then we don't have any jurisdiction over it. So it has made it difficult for the residents. In relation to the verge, I think the way you're thinking of it is there's a verge and then there's a parking bay behind it. The way it is, there's a parking bay and then there's this verge, and we don't own the land and we can't put bollards on it. And we've tried everything to try and resolve that issue. So I just wanted to just make it a bit clearer what we've tried there. But you know, people will always park indiscriminately, whatever you do. It's really difficult, but we will continue to monitor it. But I'm hoping that this development would not have an adverse effect or an even more adverse effect on the problems in the village. So thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Now moving on to recommendation conditions. We start on page 35 and 36 of the report. And again, this application is recommended for approval. Could I have a proposer and seconder to consider the recommendation?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you. Second.
Happy to
Yeah,
second, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you.
Diolch yn fawr.
Matthew, could you please ask each member if they have been present for the whole of this item and how they wish to vote? And could you then confirm the decision, please?
Absolutely, Chair. Quick start, Councillor Harold Albury. Have you been present for the whole item and how do you wish to?
Yes, and I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Same question, Councillor Tim Bowen, please.
Yes, I've been present and happy for this to go forward with the conditions implemented.
Thank you. And same to Councillor Matthew Crowley.
Yes, I've been present, Matthew, and happy to support the application.
Thank you. And to Councillor Heath Davis, please.
Yes, I've been present and I'm happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. And the same question, Councillor Rosalind Davis, please.
Yes, I've been present for the whole item and I support the recommendation. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you. And the same question, Councillor James Henn, please.
Present and support.
And same question, Councillor Jeff Jones.
Yes, I've been present and I support the recommendation.
And the same question, Councillor Carl Jones, please.
Hi, Matthew. Present throughout and vote to support the application.
Thank you. And same question, Councillor Gareth Rice, please.
Present and support.
Thank you. And the same question, Councillor Sarah, please.
I've been present throughout and I support the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Chair. I confirm that application has been approved.
Thank you, Matthew. Now we move on to section B of the agenda, which is matters for information. Agenda items 6 and 7 detail the appeals determined and delegated decisions from the time frame indicated in the circulated report. As Chair, I can confirm that we note the information contained within these reports. We have no urgent items today. So there are no further items, so that ends the business for today. Thank you all very much for attending.
Thanks all. Diolch pawb.
Diolch yn fawr. Yn Dolig Llawen, os na welai chi. Happy Christmas to you all. Have a good time. Take care.
Thank you, Roslyn.
Yes, happy Christmas. Bye.
Yeah, it's the recording stopped.